Hey, everyone. Adrienne here with a special interview. I don't do interviews often, so they have to be really, really worthwhile to get our schedules aligned, for me to think that this person is worthy of speaking to you on something that you need to hear, that I'm not going to teach you, or that just contributes in a different way to what I can teach you and discuss and talk about. So today we have Trudi Lebron. And Trudi and I have known each other in the online world. I don't know. Trudi, when did we meet? I was thinking about this in the shower this morning as I was preparing. I was like, when did I meet Trudi?
It's
Did I?
like 2020. I think it was 2020.
Yeah. So 2020, lots going on in the world. It's COVID times, it's George Floyd times. And I feel like we maybe knew each other prior to the George
Yeah,
Floyd stuff,
I
but
think we
then I
kind of knew
hired
each
you.
other. Yeah, I think we kind of knew each other just like as professionals in like
Yeah.
this space. Like we had lots of mutual
Mutual
friends and stuff like
friends.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I hired Trudi, and at the time I was, partnered with Mike Michalowicz, and Mike also had multiple other business partners. And I was like, we need to do this work and we need to do it together because we're all ill-equipped to talk about these things, to fully understand these things. And even if we think we're equipped, like there's always more to do. And so I was
Yeah.
like, Trudy, I want to bring you in, and you were instrumental for all of us during that time. And then our friendship continued. We've, continued to cross paths and evolve in all different ways. Your work at the time was more, and you were just saying this. So I'll even let you say this. Like at the time, your work was, you kind of got pigeonholed into DEI, right? Like, because that's what everyone
Yeah.
was demanding at
I
the time.
sure. And I wouldn't even say, I think I wouldn't say pigeonholed because that feels like stuck in
Labeled,
yeah.
labeled as
What so I had made a real conscious decision in 2017 actually that I wanted to be one of the leading people in the coaching industry bringing in a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that was a very
yeah.
intentional choice
Yep.
to bring into this field. Before 2020, I have been
Yeah, it
doing
wasn't like,
equity.
"Oh, 2020, now I do this." Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have been doing this work for 20 years at
Yeah.
some point, like at this right now in this moment, it's been that long. So I noticed a gap in that industry when I had started to come to events and go to things. I was like, oh, like this world has really never been confronted with these things. And because I had been around for so long, I knew that it would only be a matter of time. So I
Mhm.
wanted to really bring this education into the coaching industry and the online business industry. And so that I started laying the foundation for that in 2017, which is why in 2020, when everyone started to pay attention to it, I knew lots of people. People knew that this is what I did. Like
Yeah.
I was ready to, to be a support to
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, my work, I say I've been an equity practitioner for 20 years, but that work has really looked different at different points in my career. When I started, it was through the context of education and youth development. So we were bringing in, working on equity challenges, right? Like inequities in education, for example,
Yeah. Mhm.
through bringing in programming to young people, whether that was after school programs that had academic support and enrichment baked into them, or like in inner city high schools, like the kind of high schools that I went to school in, helping kids who had like dropped out and get them back in school and help them graduate. Right. So to me, equity work was never just like, oh, you have to learn about race.
Yeah.
That is actually a very small
Yeah. Small
conversation within
piece.
the larger context of equity work. Equity work is about how do we create a world where people's life outcomes are not statistically predictable based on their circumstances,
Mhm.
including race, demographics, ability, zip
Mhm.
code, gender, right? That how do we create a world where people can live healthy lives, pursue their dreams, be gainfully employed, meet their needs, be taken care of, and have a, generally good quality of life,
Yeah.
regardless of their identities. That's a conversation that's so much bigger than race
Right,
alone. You know what I mean? Race
right.
is a big part of it. And
Yeah,
but yeah, so that is how I have always seen this work, and all of us are responsible for that.
100%. And because you're, focusing on like the coaching world, entrepreneurial world, how does that intersect with your views on like capitalism, profitability? Because I know that this is a
Yeah.
a conversation when it comes to equity and prof- profit. Like
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
living in a capitalistic society.
Right. We're living in a capitalist society, and there are real problems with
Yeah,
capitalism. There are, right? Like, the fact that we're in the state that we're in right now, with so many people who are, unemployed, and with some companies making so much money, and CEOs having huge multi-million dollar bonuses, and
yeah,
meanwhile laying off teams, like, and whatever. We're not here to talk about whether that should or shouldn't happen. Like, there's so many things. My my baseline should, right, if I'm gonna like judge anything on what should happen, it's about, like, can people take care of themselves, right?
hmm
Like, can
hmm
that's what I'm most interested in. And
right,
so what we have done, though, is we've created an economic system where so many people can't,
right.
right? And that is a problem
That is a
to
problem.
me. That I think that's a problem. So capitalism, I think that there can be things done within capitalism to solve that problem. So I don't think capitalism on its own is the problem, but the way that we practice it, I take issue with. Um, but I don't have problems with people. I don't. I think that people should make money and be
Yeah.
able to retire and to do amazing things. I don't have problems. I don't have an issue with people making lots of money, millions of dollars. When people say things about, like, when people are talking about wealth inequality, often we're talking about, like, the kind of wealth that just such a small percentage of people, like, have access to. We're not talking about people with, like, a couple $1,000,000. You
Yeah,
know what I
the
mean? Like,
billions, and we're
yeah.
talking about, yeah, and even, like, within, I always, like, want to start within our like, what we can do, right? So, as business owners, like, there are things that we can do, like, yes, there are bigger things, advocacy things, political
Sure.
things, sure. But, like, as business owners, like, and this was always my take from a more leadership and cultural perspective. When I left the corporate world, like, one of the things that I, like, wanted to make sure was that if I was gonna be the boss of other people, I was going to make sure that I was not a toxic one, that I was paying people, that I
Yep.
was, open to feedback, that I was, being empathetic and mindful of people's life circumstances, and, being flexible when they needed flexibility to go get their kids from school or whatever. Like, I never wanted to be what I hated, and I think that that
Yeah,
sometimes is our opportunity as small business owners and business owners in general. It's like, you can be profitable, but also make sure you're paying your people a living wage, like, isn't
exactly.
isn't that
What?
neat?
Could you imagine?
Yeah. Like, make sure they
Yeah,
don't need to have 3 different jobs to make ends meet, especially if they're, providing a high value for you, right? And, like, making your whole
yeah,
business function or work. And I think that there's small things that we don't even recognize that we can do or that we're doing that shift us away from this negative, like, capitalistic type of environment that you're kind of speaking of, that
yeah.
the positive change that we can make starts with us, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, like, making sure that we give people workloads that they can actually accomplish within a reasonable amount of
Right.
time, and that we are, just have reasonable expectations of people. Um, I think that's a good place to start for sure.
For sure. Like, one of my guiding principles has always been, like, we're not creating oxygen, because I never wanted my team members to feel like they were operating on anxiety, like, that their nervous system at
Yeah.
work was on overdrive, like, "Oh my god, everything's an emergency." And that, for me, was because when I at my corporate job, I used to work at paper mills, and so we were open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a they do not shut down. And so
Yeah.
the environment sometimes, well, the leadership made it feel like things were an emergency, literally like calling me at 5 a.m. sometimes as if we were creating oxygen. And I was like, guys, like, if I get there at 7, this problem is still gonna be there and I'm still gonna solve it. But like, you don't need to call me at 5
Yeah.
a.m. like it's an emergency. And so I was like, we're not creating oxygen. I want to like give the caveat. Some people are working in high stress environments.
Yeah.
Like if you're like a cardiac surgeon, brain surgeon, like I get it. That
Yeah.
is, you're probably
Yes,
creating
literal life or death jobs.
literal
Yeah.
life or death.
Some
Most of us are not, right? And so I was
right.
like, how can I create an environment for my team where they understand we're not creating oxygen, and I set that tone, right? Like, that's my job to, like, set the energy of, like, if
Mhm.
'cause if I'm panicked about something and making it feel like we're creating oxygen, then they're going to follow, and I just don't want that. Like, I don't want to ever operate like that, and
Yeah.
for 12 years, we haven't, so that's good, you know? But you kinda have
Yeah.
to train people to recognize that because a lot of times they come from environments where they think they're creating oxygen.
Yes, I had a team member who would say that we could teach people about a liberated space and we can like create a structure for a liberated company, but we can't teach people how to be when they get there, right? Like that it was just really hard for people to come into a place where they weren't being micromanaged
Mm,
and like we knew that we were not doing working in life or death things and we treated we just kind of have like a chill approach to our day.
yeah,
And we have definitely worked with some people over the years who like are on edge all the time and it takes a while to help people to just kind of like
it does.
chill out.
I know.
The
Like,
other
I've had
part though
people
is
like
that the other
oh,
part
go
that I
ahead.
will say too, though, is that like not everyone knows how to like provide structure to themselves to actually get work done in an environment where there is no. Some people like need a little bit of structure, right, to
Mhm.
get their work done, and so like finding that balance for people also is like
That's
part
actually,
of the
like,
leadership
it's
task.
so funny you say that because I think I maybe downplay, some of I don't recognize them as, like, the right structure for helping someone through that, but some of the things that we do like, when we hire someone, we explicitly ask them, like, where they previously worked in terms of a work environment. Like, did you work at home? Like, did you work in an office setting? Did you have structured hours? Because that helps us navigate what type of transition and
Right.
support and structure that person is maybe going to need, right? Because we
Yeah.
communicate like we are a remote team. We have really flexible work hours, like to the point where you can work at 11 p.m. through the night if you want, if that's when you work best, right? But that also doesn't work well for everybody, especially if they come from a really structured environment. And so
Yeah.
we kind of communicate and help create the structure that's going to work for them. We're like, hey, this is
Yeah.
going to be a big transition for you if you're even if you're excited about it because a lot of people are oh they want the flexibility they want the remote
Yeah.
company and
Of
it's like
course.
yes and in order for you to not fail at this because I don't want you to fail performance wise we need to help structurally set you up with what's going to be best for you
Mhm.
in a remote type of environment so
Yeah.
it's funny you like mentioned that it's just like small things right that
Yeah.
times we fail to do because we don't know. If you're doing this for
And
the first
I
time,
think
how would you know?
yeah, and I think that that really speaks to just the nature of like all humans are different and people learn differently and people need different things in order to be successful. Again, these are equity conversations, right? Don't have to do with like race or racial
Yes.
diversity. Like your ability to meet people's learning needs and provide people the scaffolding and supervision and support that they need and knowing that not everybody is going to have the same exact experience when they come in order to thrive. Not all of us need those same things. So all of these things are like these are all equity issues that we if we run our companies with this equity lens, we actually do some of these things very naturally.
Yeah, it's making me think though that like how like what are the types of things that people don't even think of that are not supportive through an equity lens, right? It's like you made me think of like, oh, then is really structured work hours not really looking at things through an equity lens, or are there some obvious things that like, oh, a lot of people don't do this, but they don't even think that like that's not
Yeah.
really equitable.
It depends, right? I mean, there are some things that are just like never equitable, probably. Yeah. And like it depends because we also have to take into consideration the business,
Yeah.
right?
Still
Equity
have to
isn't
get
just
things done.
about like what's best for the employees. It's about what is best for the business, what's best for our customers or the people that we're providing services to, our clients.
Mhm.
Um, and what do we need? So let me give you an example. If you run a I give you an example from my own life. I used to work in teen mom programs. I was a teen mom, and after I got my bachelor's degree, I went back and worked in the same organization and ran the very same program that I was in, right? So, I needed to be available to those, young
Yeah.
women, um, often into the evenings.
Mm.
So my work started at, um, I think my shift usually started at like 11 and I'd
Mhm.
be working till like 7 or 8 in the evenings, right? Like
Yeah.
going, visiting them in their homes, sometimes picking them up in a van, running groups, running coaching programs, right? Like
Yeah.
with these young moms. If I worked in a place that said you have to work from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m., that would not be, if that were the rules of the organization, right? That I had to work a 9 to 5 schedule, that wouldn't have met the needs of the people that
Right.
I needed to serve because I needed to be available to people later in the evenings, right? So that's just very simple example. You have to think about what does this organization need? Now,
Yeah.
it seems obvious, but I will tell you, I have worked with people, I have worked with agencies where they have rules that are like, oh, like everyone has to be here at this time of day and the we end at this time. It's like, is that necessary? Well, if people are walking into your company and someone needs to be there because the door is open and that's
Yeah.
kind of what
Like,
you
yeah.
do, then yeah, you
Yeah.
need everybody to work those hours. But
Yeah.
if you don't need that, then it's something that could be on the table, as something to be flexible about. So there's no handbook for this is how
Mhm.
you do it, right? There's so much that has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. I think people are like, and I think that people have been on edge about getting things wrong for years, and so they kind of hide or do
Yeah.
nothing. Like
Yeah.
like, people are on edge to say something publicly, they're on edge to, like, do the wrong thing, like, they don't wanna mess up, but it's like,
Yeah.
my experience has been that you're gonna mess this up, like, you're gonna mess up at some point or
Yeah.
another, so, like, you just gotta continue you have to understand that this is a continuous learning, right? Like, that we're always continuing to figure these things out and understand different people in different ways. Like, what is your experience with people not doing anything for fear of getting it wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where a lot of people get stuck initially is that they don't wanna say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. They're trying to avoid confrontation or they think they're being equitable by letting things slide, right? Or they think they're being a good boss, right? We don't even have to use that language of equity. They just
Right,
think
because
they're
this
being
is
like,
also
"Cool."
just about
Yeah,
leadership. Sometimes you just don't do anything because you
totally.
don't wanna get it wrong or you're scared or
Yeah.
you don't wanna have a confrontation.
Yeah, or you're trying to be cool, or you're trying to be like the likable
Right.
boss, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to make everything an issue, or you don't, and like even that's an abdication of responsibility. Like you need
Mhm.
to, you know, you need to address things, you need to give people their expectations, you need to be giving people feedback. How you do it is what matters immensely, right? It's,
Yes.
are you emotionally regulated as a leader? Are you able to kind of like, even when people upset you, kind of like process your own stuff first and then bring things to people in a way that you can communicate it without that emotional charge, without, baking in a bunch of assumptions about what someone didn't know or did know or should have did, but that you're just handling the core issues, right? That need to be handled. And those are really skillful, um, techniques that we're
Yeah.
not used to doing. I think people are used to personalizing and being emotional and making assumptions and flexing power and things like that. Um, and that makes for a real hostile, it can make for a hostile work environment, certainly for
Mhm.
an uncomfortable work environment,
Yeah.
and also an environment where people like are just likely to leave if they don't feel like, they're being supported, they don't feel like they can be successful, they don't feel like the leadership is emotionally regulated. People leave those jobs, so that costs a lot of money to like lose people, hire people, retrain people,
Yeah.
like to be in that churn all the time. That's
100.
not, yeah, also not healthy.
Yeah, this is like the number one thing that we work on with people too, right? It's because they think they have made an expectation clear. Usually they haven't. Then they get frustrated about that. Then they don't communicate again about that. They'll come and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, you're frustrated with this person or you're frustrated with this outcome. Like, how did the conversation go when you spoke to them about it? Oh, I didn't talk to them about it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now we're just avoiding, right? We're avoiding the actual issue and they want to jump to, maybe just shoving it under the rug and then building resentment or firing the person. I mean, and I'm like, these are not like these are things that we like this is our work as leaders to grow through these things, to figure out how to have these difficult conversations, to figure out how to emotionally regulate ourselves, which I think is one of
Mhm.
the undervalued and under talked about skills as a
Yeah.
leader. I'm like, you guys, you think you're emotionally regulated and you're not. Like,
No,
and
most of these people are not.
you're not. And
Going
you're
around
putting
ignorant.
all of that energy back into the team, right? And that was like I was saying at the beginning, like that was like the very thing I wanted to make sure that I figured out how to do better if I was going to be in any sort of boss or leadership position because I
Yeah.
understand the other side of it. A lot of people maybe they haven't ever worked for someone like that, but I have, and it's anxiety inducing, it's nerve wracking. It makes you want to leave because if you're a high performer, you're like, I'm not even able to be successful here, hit my goals, like you're
Right.
or you have a goal for me and then you move it as soon as I get close to it. And now I'm again unable to be successful, which doesn't make me feel like I'm valuable or accomplishing the things that I want to
Yeah.
accomplish. But part of this, I think, and I wanted to talk to you about power because I think power is so intertwined into leadership
Yeah.
and equity that I was like, okay, let's talk about power because when we're in leadership positions, there's a lot of frustration when someone isn't like 5 steps ahead of us or when they're not like taking over things within the organ. Oh, they should be doing this and they should be doing that. And why aren't they taking ownership over this? And one of my philosophies and principles that we teach is that like authority is given, not taken. And that
Mhm.
and that is because there is a power dynamic at play, whether you like it or not. A lot of leaders like they don't want to be called like I resonate with this. Like I don't want to even believe that there's some power dynamic and in a more powerful position than my team members, but I am. I recognize that
Yeah. You are.
I pay them, right? So it's like I am absolute I could fire them,
Yeah.
right? Like let's be
Right.
realistic. So I am absolutely in a power position over them, quote unquote, right?
Yep.
And I use air quotes again because I don't like that there is the power dynamic, but
Yeah. Can
it
you let's
doesn't
talk
ignore
about that.
that
Can we
it
talk about that for a
exists.
second? I know this is your show, but like let's
No, go, please.
so tell me, like, why don't you like that there's a power dynamic? Not that you have to like it, but like what makes you uncomfortable about it?
I think I always just want to make sure my team and everybody else knows um that I don't want to dominate or be in a power structure where my word is the only word, right? Or that
Yeah.
my opinion is the only opinion. Like I don't want a dictatorship by any sense or stretch of the imagination. And so I think I try to probably over communicate or over vocalize that like
Mhm.
there is a power dynamic, but I'm not trying to exert power over you in our delegation or in our communication or in our work structure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it's always interesting to me because it just shows so much how we have a bias towards like a toxic version of power. And when I say bias, I mean
Mhm.
that's just the first thing that pops in our mind is like we that we want to distance our from like, oh, I don't want to be that kind of CEO or leader. Like I don't want to like use my power against you. And our tendency to do that is because what we are accustomed to, what we have become, normal, what we has been become normalized is that toxic, often abusive power. Um,
Mhm.
and there's so many other kind of power. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like power on its own is neutral. Just power on its own is neutral, right? That
Mhm.
that it exists. Um, how we use it and how what we do with that power that we're in says everything about who we are, and it completely um, dictates what happens in our environment. So whether that's our workplace, our home, whatever, our friend group, whatever we're doing,
Yeah.
right? Like it really influences that, like the way that we use and kind of share power. So, yeah, we have the I think it's important that we realize that it's there, that we own it, and that we don't shy away from it because power is also the thing that we have that allows us to get things done, right? That allows us to, like, create things in this world.
Mhm.
So without power, you can't create jobs. You can't, you like, if you don't have the, you can create those jobs because you have the power to do so. You're in that position to be able to do so. And now you want people to be successful. And what do we know about like successful environments? Well, they're emotionally regulated, you know,
Yes.
and their people share and like share power. And if you want something that is scalable and sustainable and grows, you need to develop people, and people learn in environments where they can trust, and they can't trust you if they don't trust how you're going to use your power, right? So it's all so interconnected. um so how we share power, and I think you're absolutely right. Like, what was the quote that you said, that
Oh,
power needs to be
like authority is given, not
authority?
taken.
Yeah, that's one of the best ways, like as a leader, to develop other people and to send the signal that this is how we do things here, is that you give people responsibility and you empower them to be responsible for projects and get things
Mhm.
done and supervise other people and lead certain things and run meetings and all, and be the point person on projects or contacts or with contacts. And that gives opportunities to people to practice the skills that they will need to move up into leadership. It
Mhm.
lessens your the responsibility for you. Like as a leader, you need to be doing lots of things. You can't be micromanaging every single thing, right? You can't be running all the projects yourself. So it's like this practice back and forth of like giving, which is also uncomfortable to do as a leader, and then having our teams like take ownership and really get things done. And then your job is to kind of let them do things and provide them support. And even that is another thing to
Yeah.
work out, how you provide support. So this is, I think leadership is such, I say this all the time actually. Do you want to be a leader, or do you just want to be in charge of shit? Like, do you just want, like, what
Yeah,
do you
there's a
want to do?
big
Because
difference,
I
right?
think
Like,
I think people just like to be in charge, but leading is it's collaborative. Like in order to lead, there has
yeah.
to be others, and like there is a relationship there, and so you just have to decide like who do you want to be and what is the environment that you want to create, and like you're in charge of it.
Yes, I love that. Do you wanna lead or you just wanna be in charge? Because you get to
Right.
decide, right?
Right.
Intentionality here, but, in terms of where you want to grow, develop your own skills, and like you were saying, like, letting go like, I also think that, in conjunction with emotional regulation, I think restraint is one of the biggest leadership skills that goes so unpracticed and kills any form of delegation or authority
Yeah.
giving that we are working on with the team. You have to figure out how to emotionally regulate and restrain yourself from jumping in. Like
Yeah.
the amount of that's probably been my biggest like growth and thing that I've had to work on like, I teach this stuff to other people, and it's still hard for me to practice restraint when it comes to my own business or my own intellectual property or my own, things that people on my team
Yeah.
are creating, the projects. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do not jump in on that. Do not jump in. Even if it's not exactly the way that you would have done it, it does not matter, right?
Right.
Is it aligned with our values as a company?
Right.
Then m hold your tongue, move along, let this person experience their own growth, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm stealing that from them every time I jump in, but, like, that restraint is so hard for people to practice because they don't even
It is.
recognize that they should practice it, right? They think that
Yeah.
that's, like, I don't know if you've experienced that or had clients experiencing that, but, like, to me, that's, like, one of the
Yeah.
number one things we can figure out how to work on. And I also,
Absolutely.
like,
And it
I want
comes
to say
from
something
different
also about
places.
psychological safety, and I don't know if this ties in at all to that, but I feel like a maybe.
Yeah. It certainly could. I think the first I'll talk about the restraint thing. I think that if you're having a difficult time giving people delegating things, giving people responsibility, and then feeling like you have to jump in, I think understanding what that's about is really important. Do you
Yeah,
want to jump in because you don't trust them? Do you want to jump in because maybe you didn't train them properly and you're like something is going to go wrong?
yeah,
Do you wanna jump in because that project is actually too high risk and you weren't ready to give it? So let's say, for example, you give someone a project to lead and that project has like $50,000 on the line. Like, well, if you can't absorb a $50,000 mistake, maybe you shouldn't have delegated that project, right? So
yep,
is it too high? Like, and so you need to be thinking about like what's the risk? What's the, like, is the trust there? Have I trained them? All these things. And then you can start to put in the scaffolds in place where you need them to. But just I really would interrogate like why. Like same with micromanaging. Like if
yeah,
that's
or
your
is it
thing to
just
do,
because I feel the need to be valuable or valued, or this is where I get my sense of
right.
self-worth, and so I'm jumping in
Yeah.
because of my own stuff, you know?
Right, and each one of those reasons have a different solution, right?
Yes,
Some of those are about, like, better planning, some of those are about training and SOPs, and some of that needs to be brought into therapy, right?
yeah,
So that you can go and, like, deal with it yourself because it's not your team's responsibility to make you feel like you're valuable and that you're
right,
good. That needs to come from you.
yeah,
I also wanna name because I think that this is important, I'm not sure how many folks listening to this might be here, but if you're like a middle leader and you're getting, and maybe you work for someone who is like maybe a little more toxic, a little more, little less regulated, and you're trying to be the buffer between you and like
the
the
team,
team under you, that's a really sensitive position. I've worked with a lot of people in that place. When you before
mhm.
said, "Oh, not everybody works for a boss like that." There's likely some if you're in a big company, there's someone in the company that
Oh,
is
yeah,
like that and you might just have people above you who are like absorbing that for you. I see that again. I see that a lot. And those people are really likely to experience burnout quicker. They're really likely to those are the people who are likely to leave, and
mhm,
then what happens is that the like it kind of comes gushing down,
yes.
right? Like that toxicity starts to roll down to the whole team.
Because that
So,
person has left or they can't take it anymore, they
yes,
cannot absorb anymore, and now it's
exactly.
flowing down to everybody else, and what you thought was, this one middle manager who couldn't handle things, when it's actually you and your leadership now it's trickling down to everybody once they become what's the, like, they're not a dam anymore, right? The dam has
Yeah,
broken, and
exactly.
everything's flowing down, and they have been trying to hold it for so long. I totally agree
Yeah,
with you. It's, like, such a challenging position, that middle management. It's you know they get no credit, and all the all the burden of
yeah.
absorbing a lot of shit, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah, but and for those folks, like your ability to manage up, like learning strategies that you're kind of coaching and like leading your supervisor are really important. Also, that you're talking with your team to the extent possible. I know you have to have discretion there, just about some of the pressure so that people are prepared. Like I just feel like anytime that there's this like secrecy or holding, like it's is recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's
So
exhausting.
it's not all of us, no matter where we are in a organizational chart,
Mhm.
there's leadership skills that we could be practicing and learning so that we're again leading our teams, leading ourselves, sometimes leading people who should be leading us.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
we
that's
can't
like
sometimes we can't wait for those people to like
to
clean
do the
their act
thing.
up. Like we just yeah.
And that's like when we work with we work with the CEOs, right? And then we also over the years have learned we work with the operators, right? And that person who,
Yeah.
managing the team, managing the day to day of the business, and we train them. But then part of our training with them is what you were talking about is like helping them. How do they lead up? How do they pull things off of this person's plate? How do they,
Yeah.
as I say, like authority is given, not taken. But how can they ask for it more proactively if this person isn't actively giving
Mhm.
it? Right? It's like
Right.
we can train your leader, but that if there are things that you're frustrated with, there's also things that you can do and have, which feels good, right? To have more control over your career, over your day to day. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
everybody needs to learn those skills so that they're feeling more empowered in their own role of like what they can do to
Yeah.
get to a better place with the company or
Yeah.
with just their own development. But
Absolutely. And also learning how to like advocate for yourself and setting boundaries at yourself. One of the things that I'll never forget, this moment, those moments in your life that will just never leave you. Like I was like patting
core,
myself up
yeah,
because this was the last job that I had. I was in a nonprofit. I was like the director of like family and community services or something. So there was a department head over me. And I uh, she came into my office maybe 20 minutes before the end of the day with like some report that needed to be looked at and checked and done, like to set out for a grant. And I had another project from another initiative that I was working on, like trying to get done. And she came in and she's like, I need this done like before you leave. And I was like, I'm leaving at 5. I'm working on this right now. And this has a deadline of this.
yeah.
And now bringing me this. Which one do you want me to do?
Mhm.
I was not gonna sit there and figure it out on my own. I had to go. I was not staying late. That wasn't gonna happen. I had somewhere to be.
Yep.
So instead of guessing or being stressed about it, I like just looked at her. I named the time. I named the project. She knew she had just brought this into me. To me, it wasn't like it was
Right.
something that I forgot to do. And I gave the responsibility back to her to say, like,
Like,
decide, like,
yeah,
how
like, this is what I'm
you
working on.
got me for 20 minutes. What do you
It's
want me to do here? You
This
know
is
what I
what
mean?
I'm working on, and now you're bringing me something else, which this is this is a skill we teach too. It's so important, like, to recognize it's you can shift me to this other thing, but
Yeah.
you have to recognize there's a trade-off here. That means I won't
Right.
be working on project A. So if you personally feel as the leader that project B is the priority, I will shift to that.
Yeah.
And project A is going to sit there until this is done because that's what you've identified as the priority. But like you were saying at the very beginning,
Yeah.
like we have to understand how to manage people's workloads. And part of that comes from being a better advocate for ourselves of I'm leaving at 5. Here's what I already have on my plate. Would you like me to do this or that? Right? Because
Yeah.
I can't do it all and I'm not willing to stay late or to do, to take, because you could have just
Yeah.
said, okay, and then stressed about
Oh,
it.
and there was a time in my career, many times in my career,
Same.
where I would be like, just give it to me, no problem. Like, I got, like,
Yep.
and
Same.
had it been another day of the week that I
Maybe.
didn't have somewhere to be, I might not have even thought about it and just did it. Right. But
Yep.
because I had that
Hard
time
stop.
commitment, yeah, that hard stop, it gave me the opportunity. And I had these skills to be able to like communicate clearly
Yep.
and not be rattled. Like, just decide for me. Like, I work here. I just,
Yep.
I just work here. I don't have like whatever you say. But like I've just seen so many team members who feel like they have to figure it out themselves, or the boss comes in and says something and they leave and they're like, oh my God, like I have all this stuff. Like that person was in the room. Like just enroll them into your dilemma and help and
Mhm.
have them help you solve it. Now there's a chance that they're just like, deal with it.
Yeah.
Now you know who you work for though, right? That's I'd be
Yeah.
probably putting my resume out like the next
Yeah.
day. Um, so yeah, like
Yeah.
I just think it's incredibly important that we're again that when if we're not the person who is making all of those decisions and we are someone who is like impacted by decisions that we're speaking up about how decisions
Mhm.
or needs impact us.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you all
And
day.
because you said this about psychological safety,
Oh, yes, yes.
in order to do that, you need a psychologically safe environment.
Right.
Because if I felt like I'd be fired on the spot if I pushed back, that would be
No,
an
no.
indicator that this space that something is going there. That means that there's other things happening in that organization that give me the impression that that is a possibility, right?
Yes.
So if you're creating emotionally and psychologically safe environments, people can ask questions and push back respectfully and ask for things that they need. And if they're not, that's an indication that they may not be feeling safe to do so.
Right. Like, that to me, like, because I think a lot of people think I think the majority of people think that they're creating open, safe, psychologically supportive environments, and we
Yes.
could know the statistics and say that they're not,
Right. They're not.
right?
No. Chances are.
Everyone can't think that, and then we have, the majority of team members
Mhm.
who don't feel that way, and it
Right.
doesn't matter what you think, it matters what their perception is, right? Perception is reality when it
That's it.
comes
That's the experience they're having.
that is their experience, and I've gone through countless team work environments where the business owner thinks, "Oh yeah, we have a completely open and people can, talk to me about anything." And then I talk to the team privately, separately, a- and they absolutely would never say a damn word to the person, you
Yeah.
know? And so my question, which I think you already answered, was like, how can people know that they're creating an environment that is not psychologically safe for people? And number one is, if they're not pushing back on you, if they're not asking questions, or if they're not feeling safe to, if they're not giving you contributing ideas freely, it's because they don't think that you're
Mhm.
open to that.
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely. And also if you haven't done anything to explicitly indicate to them that you are okay being challenged, like if you haven't talked about that, if you haven't demonstrated that, if you haven't modeled it. So for example, one of the things that's important is like modeling how you push back. Like let's say you're in a team meeting, pushing back against your team members' ideas, again, in gentle, respectful ways that are generative. If you
Mhm.
model that as a team member, as a leader, and teach your team how to do it together, then they will
They-
do it with you,
yeah,
right?
then
But
they
if
know it's
you haven't,
appropriate to do in return.
absolutely, but if
Yeah.
you haven't taken any steps to demonstrate how that is done, this is why I'm a huge advocate for coaching, because I think a coaching approach to leadership really lets you do this very easily.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you haven't done anything to explicitly say or show that you have an environment where these things can happen, you should just assume that people don't think that you can. Because
Right.
again, our default norm is that you don't, that people don't do this.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you all day. I'm like 45 minutes in, so I'm like, okay, I got to wrap this up. But I love and appreciate you, and I love and appreciate your work. I think you're doing such incredible things in the world for leaders, for team members, for people of all sorts. Like, they don't even have to it doesn't even have to be like in a work environment. Like, these conversations are so critical. Where can people find you, and what are you like excited about that you're working on now?
Yes. So people can find me at trudilebron.com. Get on my get on my email list.
Yeah,
I write
I'll
a
put all that in the
weekly
show notes too, so that you
great. I
for it.
Awesome. I write a weekly email called Working Hypothesis on Living, Leading, and Dreaming Through Chaos. And so that is one of the best ways to get to know me and get to know my work. I also have a podcast, and Adrienne's episode is the second episode that we released on that podcast. It is called Trudi Lebron is Ambitious and Exhausted. Um, And yeah, find me there. These days, I'm working with individuals, helping people build their thought leadership bodies of work, and working with teams, helping them build human centered, values driven
Ugh, we didn't even get
workplaces.
to we didn't even get to talk AI in this
I
human-centered.
know. Yeah, I'll have to come back. I'll
I
have to
know,
come back.
because you and I are both, like, very human-centered. I believe in the use of AI in very specific ways, but I wanted to have a human-centered conversation, so we'll have to have another episode.
Again, I think, with my answers always for all of these questions is like, there is no one blueprint for this. We have to be thinking about, what are our businesses? Who are they meant to serve? What is our core mission here? What are our values? And then you make decisions that support
Love
that,
that.
right? And that you're transparent and that you align every decision that you make, including, how do we hire people? How do we supervise people? What's our relationship with AI? To our values and our mission, right?
Yeah,
That's and again, because it's so individualized, there's no one blueprint for it. It is a process of testing and trying and building and being in community with people.
yeah. I love it.
So that's what I'm up to these
I
days. So
love
yeah,
it.
y'all
Thank
come
you.
check me out.
Thank you, Trudy. Thank you for being
You're
here.
so welcome. Thanks for having me. See ya.